Welcome back to my $700 Volvo XC90 overhaul series. This video is part 6 and we'll be replacing the PCV components. Once that's done, we'll reassemble everything and get the car started. So to remove the PCV system, we've already removed this. And then there's this box, which connects, the box itself connects to the block. And there's this little 90-degree pipe. And this hose right here, which connects to this pipe going across. So you have to loosen and remove this, loosen and remove this, and then pull it out. Pull that up right here. Whew. Okay. This one came off here. So when you do this, undo this clamp, you'll replace it, and then pry it up with a pry bar. Now we're gonna pry on this one. Using a curved pick. Looks like I'm able to pull that part of the way. I can pry it off with the pry bar. There we go. Before moving forward, there's two 10mm bolts on either side of this PCV box. One on the right, and oh geez, all the way on the bottom left, which once again calls for long extension. This is not supposed to be blocked up. Oh, it's like mostly collected there, but it's a lot of gunk. That's why we're replacing this. Okay, let's poke at this. Let's see. Ooh, it's hard. This is where the two 10mm bolts screw through. One on the right and on the bottom, you'll have to go in from the front, just around the alternator. Now with the box out of the way, this here is a rubber, there's a rubber seal you don't want to remove to replace. So, try the little pry bar. Here's the coupling. It's got the little rubber piece on the end, and you can push it from the back of this. You don't have to grab it by here, you push it from this side and it'll come off. Now, with that out of the way, you gotta kind of scrape out what's in there. Oh, there's so much crud in here. So this is the hole, and all this dirt under there. It's gunking things up. All this carbon buildup. Change it to a slightly less angled pick. So it's really important to clean out this opening so the PCV system works properly. And you might have a lot in there, and some of it's inevitably going to end up in your oil pan. So when you're done, before starting the engine, it's going to be really important to change your oil so that any of the carbon drops in doesn't get sent through the engine. To find out if we need to drop the oil pan to clean it out, we're gonna blow some compressed air through the bottom connector to the PCV system, and we're gonna see how the air blows up through it. So to get a good seal, I had a grommet. I'm using an old glove to kind of try to seal it off. So when I put it on here, I shouldn't get too much leak. There's air coming out the top. You feel air coming out. So blowing down here, I'm feeling the air coming out oil fill cap and the top of the PCV system where that hose connects. So that means it's not blocked up down here, and we can continue. So if you don't get air coming back out through the top, that means that that passage down there is blocked up, and from my understanding, it means you have to drop the oil pan. Thankfully, we don't have to do that. And yeah, we can get to, I'm gonna clean things up down here and then start reassembling the PCV system. So here we have the original PCV. It's dirty, full of carbon. And here we have the brand new box. The side hose. One goes up to the top of the engine. This is the one that connects to the banjo bolt, which I'll go into more detail later. The rubber seal that goes into the engine. From here. And a whole bunch of hose clamps. So I think these three are going to be the big one here, medium one here, and the small one here. I have to figure out where the one's supposed to put this. So there's a spare banjo bolt. The other one has some carbon buildup. Crush washers for the banjo bolt. This might go like this. Watch your keys. Yeah. This is a Volvo part. This is another Volvo part, and this is Professional Parts Sweden. This is really just a coupling, so it's not a big deal. Let's try to figure some of this out. Yep, that's good here. This should be good here. I'm gonna try to orient them properly. And I'm gonna need, when I go to install them, one of these tools which will pull these together, pull it from the sides, and crimp it together. So let's line this up. You're comparing one that came off here to the fresh one. You can see this is going to be the right size, and you can really see how the tool crushes it in and tightens it up in place. So part of the PCV system is what we took the banjo bolt out of. So this here is a coolant pipe, and this is PCV system, which comes in and reconnects down here. So Volvo sells this whole assembly as one piece, but you can also get a replacement part like this off the T6 engine. It's a little longer, but it will work fine. So we're gonna replace this. Now to free up some space, this cover here I'm gonna cut away a little bit so that I can access the coolant hose and clamp it off. Maybe a little further. But I don't know, I don't think I'll have to take it off all the way. Right here we can actually see the hose here. And it just broke off. So that really is a a sign that it was time to replace it. So I'm gonna remove this clamp here, pull that piece out, and then work on pinching off this coolant hose. Okay. I was worried for a second that just didn't want to damage this hose, because if this got damaged, that means this whole piece which is hundreds of dollars, would have to be replaced. So fortunately, we're okay. We use some hose clamps to block off, prevent any leaks. Then you pinch them flat, squish them up, and prevent any coolant leaking out. When I remove these clamps, nice and tight. If you don't tighten it enough, they'll just leak everywhere. And it kills your grass. Well, at least Ford Gold does when I worked on the heater core for the F250. Now, oops, let's get that over here. Thin flathead. Right at the end here, maybe. This wraps around and grabs onto these. So if you pry it up with a flathead here, you should be able to loosen it up. I'm gonna try these little guys so I can grab the edge here. Try to pull it back. Maybe not. At least I was able to lift the edge. Oh, there we go, it's released. Push it back. Those pliers. Twist a bit. There we go. Okay, just a little bit of coolant. Ooh. Yeah, good, it was tight enough. Okay, now, same thing on the other side. Jeez, I should have put a glove on this hand too. You can see carbon buildup in here, but we're replacing it, so it's okay. I'm gonna feed this through this sleeve that I partially cut. Hopefully I can get it to fit through. Yep. It's back out there. I'm gonna put a little bit of silicone on it. I put it on a towel because I've got a spray and I don't want it to get everywhere. That was not enough. Let's just spray it on here. Oops, don't forget, hose clamp goes on before so that it's, let's take it back on. Pop that on here. Okay. Push it in. Go. Put that up there and we'll tighten it up after we're done. So that seems good. Make sure you feel, the flare is past where you're gonna clamp. Feel that through there. This one's barbed, so it just fits until it's flush. Please get tight enough. Yep. There we go. Good. Once you have it grabbed, you can reposition it while the tool is holding it. Those guys. And now this part of our PCV system is back to normal, as it was just open. Probably gonna run a little bit of electrical tape around this to seal it back up. Feels good. Okay, that's the banjo bolt connector replaced. Now that we've done this part of the PCV that connects with the banjo bolt, we're going to put the new box in. So we got to get our coupler, put a little bit of silicone inside, just a little bit and roll it around. Rubber goes towards the box. And earlier we put these on without securing them, but that way we can adjust if we need. Just drop it in. You can kind of see it if you look from the right a little bit. See the coupler. Take some extra time to wiggle it just to make sure the coupler down there in place. So with the box in place, I'm going to work on tightening this clamp. And since I can't access with these, I'm going to give it a try with some cutters. Be very careful to not cut it. If it does end up getting cut, I do have worm gear clamps that I can use. Then once that one's done, I can use the regular one here, and we'll keep moving. Yep, that's working. Okay, and that's good. See right here. That's tight. Run this alongside and keep moving. Put this in, and then we'll add in the clamp for this hose and get that tightened up. Actually, while I'm at it, I'm gonna remove, before I forget, remove the intake gasket, because you're gonna have to do that. You'll notice this one's already been cut. Oh, has it? Yeah, there's a little cut here, because otherwise it might not come out. So, yeah, this will catch on the thermostat, so you can't remove it all the way. And then before we put the new one on later, I'm going to clean this up a bit. So for Volvo, they don't specify every single torque spec, but they have a table where it goes by bolt size. So M5, M7, let me just look it up real quick. You got a little table. So M5 is 5 Newton meters, M6 10 Newton meters, M7 17. The two bolts that bolt the PCV box into the engine are M7, so that'll be 17 Newton meters. And then M8 is 24, M10 50, M12 80, and M14 130. I'm gonna get started putting these on, or back on, I should say. I've cleaned up the threads a bit because one of them was a little gross. Make sure you check that your units are correct. 17 Newton meters. On the click-type torque wrenches, you'll be able to usually flip it over. On one side it'll be foot-pounds, on the other side Newton meters, so you can use that. And if you have the click-type, don't forget to run it through all the way tight, all the way loose, and then to your spec. Okay. So I've done the right angle one to the block. I'm going to do that one to the, oops. Okay. New one on here. Push that in. Probably want to orient this one towards the top when you clamp it down, so it doesn't get in the way when you're doing this one, but nice. Okay. Those pliers, get it started. Gutters, nice and tight. That's done for that. Now, this is gonna go on here. The top part will connect to the top of the valve cover, but you don't want to connect this yet because if you remember, we have to fish this through the intake before we connect it. So if we do it too early, and you have to undo it, and you wasted a clamp. But we can make sure it's positioned well. Push that all the way down, make sure this lines up well. Yep. Get this down here. And there's room for the squishing tool, the pliers. Remember, when you get it started, you can hold it and still move it before you go for it. And it's good. Nice and tight. And that, I believe, all the hoses for the PCV. And we're going to be able to start looking at getting the intake back on. Now, before doing the intake, I'm going to clean the throttle body and change the gasket just to get that done. And I'll be good. This is the throttle body. Just working on it, it's just flipped over. The hose is still connected. I'm going to try to get it off with these. These are 8mm bolts. You'll loosen them up. So to identify what size bolt this is, you measure at the widest part of the threads. In this case it's 6mm, so it's M6. Ooh, this one's oily. Probably means that gasket is tired, so it's a good thing we're doing it. Oop. Ew. There's all sorts of grime in here. Ew, why is this covered in oil? What is this? What happened? You can see, I started cleaning it and there's like a bunch of carbon buildup in here. As you can see, this is all from scrubbing on it. I'm gently scrubbing to dislodge the carbon, or scraping. You don't want to scratch the surface, just dislodge the carbon. So there's a tiny little bit that's left, mostly just a little bit of cleaner and paper towel. Get you in there. It's a lot better. Not quite there yet, but a little more work. And it'll be good. So clean the surface with a little scrubber. Drag it away. Not like this, so you don't scar it. Just away. Ideally, you want to use something like a bristle brush, which I've ordered, but I don't have it yet. So then you just attach it to your drill, just go zip, and you're good. The main part of the seal is really on the center part, but still be careful. So I think part of the issue is that this gasket has steel under the coating, and so that reacted with the aluminum a little bit, especially where the surface material came off. And you can kind of see that's where the issues are. I reinstall the throttle body. It goes back on like this. But we need the new gasket. Just make sure you get a new one, because you don't want to end up with an old one and have any boost leaks or something like that. This is a raised part. It shouldn't matter which way it goes, since they're both flat surfaces. Just make sure it's nice and smooth. Make sure you blow out anything that fell in here. Your throttle body is clean. I'm going to line it up. Because these are M6 bolts, we're going for 10 Newton meters. Press that. It'll probably feel easy. This is a long lever. Next, we're going to install the intake manifold. So you'll need a new gasket. It's very important. And because you can't remove the furthest bolt over here, it's a good way to deal with it is to cut this little tab, this little slot, and that way you can get it on there. So you'll have to take off the 2 bottom bolts, the 2 right bottom bolts, and then we'll put them back in. And the reason we don't have to take them out all the way is because the bottom screw holders on the intake manifold are slots, so you can just slot it on. And if I had thought about that before, it would have been easier to remove the banjo bolt. Before you put on the gasket, you want to clean up the mating surface. Use that just to make sure it's nice and clean, so we get a good seal. So as we go, we're going to want to line everything up properly. This is going to come through the runners. This is going to come through the runners. I'm going to reach up and tighten that up before even thinking about putting this back on. Make sure it's clean, because it is pretty oily. And same thing on the throttle body itself. Push that through here. Your brand new banjo bolt. 2 crush washers, you need new ones of these. Put one on it now. Have the other one ready. Since it's a stubby wrench, I'm gonna pull on it kind of hard. Get the top bolts in, hold things in place. Now while that's on there, I'll torque it down now. And these have a specific torque. In the manual, it says specifically 19 Newton meters. Okay. Now for the intake pipe. This time I'm having it pointing towards the front, so we can use a short extension, tighten it up on there. Because if you're working on accessing it, you're going to take off the charge pipe, and then the hose that goes to the intercooler is flexible, so it can be out of the way. Got to plug in the throttle. So to attach this one and this clamp, I'm going to take off coil number 3. Pop the hose on there. I'm going to angle it this way. Use the cutters to do this. Secure. And I can put coil 3 back in. Okay, we have, so far we've connected this vacuum hose. This PCV hose will be replaced. The banjo bolt and the 2 crush washers. The intake, which I have to push down and over. And now I think I got a new crimp clamp, but this screw type one is still good. Might change it later, but it's not going anywhere. I'm going to reinstall the dipstick. I'm going to take out the dipstick itself, and since this O-ring is in terrible shape, pull that off, clean this a little bit. Another tiny bit of oil on it. I can realign it. I think it goes in this way. Another flashlight. I did have to put a fair amount of pressure on the dipstick to set it in place, and I found that twisting it a little bit helped make that easier. And yes, we reached the oil. Good. So here I have fuel injector O-rings and the fuel rail here. So before reassembling anything, I'm going to remove them and replace all the O-rings. These are pretty old. I don't know if they've ever been replaced. So okay, it's just splitting. Jeez. No, yep, just broke off. Sulfide removed. I'm going to make sure this is all clean. We'll wipe down. So the kit came with 10, but since these are still seated, I'm just going to do the top one. Push it on and around. So just grab it, push on it from either side, push it over. The fresh O-rings are in. Yeah, this is where that little plastic piece will connect. So this fuel line is going to go right in here. Actually, before I put it in, take the opportunity to clean the fuel rail a little. That done. I'm gonna screw these in. This is a T15, a little latch guy, which secures the fuel pipe in place. Just slide it in from the top this way, with the tab on the right. Snap it on, tighten it up. Connect that on here. Let's Probably zip tied this again because I think the original clip broke. Next is your injector harness. Push the metal tab in, and then once you're in, it should snap back out. So again, right here to get it in, and then it should pop back out when it's in all the way. And on the very end, oh no. Okay, so my temperature sensor broke off. Okay, that's not ideal. All right. Yeah, zip tie, fix that. Let's see how to fix this. So as you can see, I got a new connector. This is actually not quite the right one, but I was able to modify it by filing down the edges, the grooves correctly. So you can see it's the same connector, but I had to cut in here and here. And this is temporary while I wait for a factory replacement. That'll be here next week. But with this, it should allow me to test the engine once it's all reassembled. Now the colors look wrong because the connector's different, but I did match them up to the old connector to be extra sure that it was correct. So put the intake back on, gotta take these out. This engine mount is terrible. It's useless, so it's going to be time to change it. 13. So the front left is a long bolt, the front right is a short one. So on your replacement part, you can just throw them like this. Back left is also long, and the back right is short. So they're long bolts on this side, short ones on that side. And as you can see, it's worn out. So funnily enough, this brand new Hutchinson engine mount is identical to the Volvo casting with the branding ground out. 50 Newton meters. Here. There we go. These are, once again, T30s. With the covers back on, I'm reinstalling the charge pipe. Don't forget, when you use a 1/4 inch socket to hold a bit, it's not magnetic. Don't be like me. Don't drop it into your engine bay. So you can either remove these bolts or the two on either side. In this case, remove through bolts. With two 18s, you could tighten it up. You grab an 18, set your torque wrench to 80 Newton meters. There we go. Just careful not to let your wrench crash into the sensor. That's it. Well, minus the timing cover, but to monitor for leaks, to stay open. And then, since we have to do the timing belt anyway, after the test drive, we'll just get back into it and work on that. Sounds like it's primed. Go ahead. It's really important to note that before starting the engine, I did change the oil because, like I said before, you don't want any of the gunk that was in the PCV system to get sent through the engine. After letting the engine idle for a while, I looked around and there were no leaks, which is really good news. So finishing this job was a really big step towards getting this car back on the road. So with the issue of crankcase pressure taken care of, the next step is going to be to change the timing belt since it's pretty old, and while I'm at it, I'll also be doing the water pump. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.